good morning, everybody. Unless, of course, you're watching this video in the evening, and that is good evening, and you are watching Time Travel TV. And today, we're going to be talking about the Battle of Rorke's Drift, which happened in 1878. Now, 1878, British wanted to bring Zululand into the British Empire, and the Zulus didn't want to become part of the British Empire, so the Anglo-Zulu War broke out. The British invaded and met the Zulus at the Battle of Isandlwana. Now, the British are fairly confident of victory because they've got guns and modern training and weaponry. On the other hand, the Zulus have short stabbing spears called assakais and animal hide shields, which are not overly useful against guns, except the Zulus render an absolutely massive defeat upon the British. The British are absolutely humiliated. 2,000 British died. The remainder of the force, which is not very many coincidentally, retreat back to Rorke's Drift. Now, there are already some British at Rorke's Drift, the wounded from some previous skirmishes and a small force of 150, plus the about 12 British survivors from Isandlwana, and then they're shortly joined by 3,500 Zulus who want their pound of flesh from the British. Now, this is the stage for the Battle of Rorke's Drift. The Zulus attack on the south wall and swing round to the north in an attempt to try and breach the wall of the little fortress they've made for themselves of sandbags and biscuit boxes. Yes, I did just say biscuit boxes, and I don't mean anything else except as in sort of biscuits. Anyway, so then the second wave of Zulus attacked against the northwest wall and tried to breach it, except they came and came and came again, and they couldn't breach the wall. The wall was just high enough for the British to shoot at the Zulus, but not for the Zulus to be able to climb over and get in. Not only that, but the British were keeping up quite a steady amount of fire. I'm honestly surprised the British did not run out of ammunition during the battle. If it lasted any longer, I think the British would have been in trouble. So then what happened was the Zulus started their attack of gunfire. Now, the Zulus did have some guns, but they were very old guns. Some of them were captured off the dead bodies at Isandlwana. Others were ones they'd managed to buy, but they're mainly muskets, fairly inaccurate, and they're firing from a high ground, and the British managed to pick off the Zulu snipers. Then there was a renewed attack by the Zulus, which managed to breach the wall, and the British had to fall behind a defensive line of biscuit boxes, which are the same sort, which, as I mentioned earlier, are biscuits you might want to eat. So, this left some British stranded in the hospital at the other end. Remarkably, absolute miracle that some of them managed to fight their way out and get to the main force of British. Others died, but the Zulus set the hospital on fire, which actually became quite a godsend for some of the British later on in the battle, because although they were completely surrounded by Zulus by this point, when night fell, the fire of the hospital managed to illuminate the Zulu army, so the British could shoot at them more easily. The Zulus eventually withdrew for the night. They went to attack again the next morning, but they heard and they saw British reinforcements coming, and they pulled away. And the battle was over. In 1960s, they made a film called Zulu, which was very famous and also very historically accurate, which we'll take a look at now, shall we? By the end of the battle, 17 British had died as opposed to 600 Zulu warriors. The media coverage of the battle was phenomenal. There's so many newspapers reported on it. mainly because they wanted to draw attention away from the Battle of Isandlwana, where 2,000 British died, and towards the Battle of Rorke's Drift, with the victorious defence of their outpost. This should, of course, shouldn't take away from the bravery of the 150 British soldiers there who fought incredibly bravely. Anyway, their story has gone down in history as somewhat of a legend, and I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please subscribe to Time Travel TV, and I'll see you next time. Cheerio!